Light is not only necessary to see, but is necessary to express ideas. The way a light is configured in order to insinuate an emotion is dependent on the audience and purpose of the image. Every person is unique and will perceive the world fairly different to another person simply because each light wave is different. The one way the world is perceived the same to each individual is through a single image taken by a camera.
First, to understand how light affects the observer of a picture, one must understand how light is captured into a camera in order to create the picture itself. A camera has 4 primary functions consisting of white balance, focus, aperture, and shutter. White balance is using a white surface in the area in which one is setting up to take the photograph and adjusting it on the camera so that it looks like the surface does to the photographer's eye in real time. By doing this, the color hue of the light given will be balanced accordingly.
People don't understand that light actually has color to it. And it goes from a very warm spectrum to a very blue spectrum. So sometimes you accidentally take a photo that's in the wrong color temperature. It might have a green tint, a blue tint, an orange tint. And once you understand about white balance, then you can actually purposely level all that out so that all the light looks the same color.
Focus is the clarity of an image. The blur may be used for various effects, such as motion and emphasis. Depth of range of focus is determined by the manual settings controlled on the lens or based on the amount of aperture the camera is set at. Aperture is a function of the camera that determines the amount of light allowed into it. The more light that is allowed into the lens, the more the image imprints and develops. When adjusting aperture, it may be noticed that it is measured in what is called f-stops. F-stops are the focal ratio that correspond with the focus function that was previously mentioned. The greater the f-stop number becomes, the less amount of light that enters through the camera lens. Shutter is the speed at which a camera is taken. It shares components with the focus function, also to determine the blur or clarity of a shot. Bringing these 4 elements together are like putting the puzzle pieces of a puzzle together. Each element is necessary for the highest quality image. Furthermore, developing a cause and effect when they are combined. On a film-oriented camera such as in 1885, light would be absorbed into the film once the shutter release button was pressed, opening the lens. Digital single reflex, or DSLR cameras in the modern society, follow the same concept, except now a sensor is inside the body of the camera behind a mirror that is reflecting the light captured by the lens.
It's really looking at a reverse image, but it's through the lens. It's grabbing a mirror image of the light. It's capturing the light particles, the pixels, in a pixel format, and it's translating what it sees in the camera.
The light is then transferred digitally through the sensors onto the secure digital card. Conversely, developing a picture through film requires a darkroom where a negative photo would be submerged in developer chemicals, such as Kodak Dextil, and drying under a safe light.
Back when I first got into photography, you learn that how the light is trapped through the lens, going through, hitting the back, hitting the emulsion on the film, really negative, and depending on the light sensitivity, what happens is that it would activate little particles that's on the emulsion. And then back in the day, I'm not sure if people do it anymore, but you had to go in the dark room and you had to agitate the film and do all that and go through the process to make everything come to life.
Whether it is light to develop the image or light to take the image, without light, there is no picture. The science behind light going through the eyeball is most similar to the technology of a camera.
Well, an eye has got a series of lenses that focuses, just like a camera does. And so the focusing occurs by the light going through the different lenses at different thicknesses, which creates more bend in the light depending on how it goes in. So it kind of focuses and defocuses, very similar to a camera.
The light rays come to focus through the retina as well as many lenses of various thicknesses, which may also be compared to the lens of a camera. The nerve endings in the retina process the light rays into impulses that transfer to an optic nerve that transmits these to the brain. The pupil of the eye acts as an iris for controlling what may be called aperture, the allowance of light into the eye. It is a muscle that constricts and adjusts according to the light differentiation outside of it. The way humans interpret light is primarily based on its image, an image that is provided by various electromagnetic waves seen every day. Intensity is the measure of light used to create the proper amplitude desired when recreating this illuminance. The intensity of light that is taken in is providing a mirror image of what is actually being seen by the eye. A camera flips this image around and only allows the amount of light a human eye may only be able to observe.
Color comes from the inside of the eye where the retina is. There's rods and cones, and the cones actually will give us color. There's different ones. There's red greens and there's blues and yellows, and those will, depending on what you're looking at, you will get those pigments. They will get touched by the light and bring out that color that you see. And we don't know that everybody sees the same colors. We know white is white, but we don't know what everyone else's white looks like. It depends on the amount of rods and cones you have. So there's color deficiencies that can occur in people, and that can be because they're missing some rods or cones actually that have red or green pigments or blue or yellow pigments. So even though we all see red some and we all see green some, for the normal non-color deficient patient, you can still have different hues of that. So we all think greens look the same, but my green may look different than your green, but we still call it green.
Color is often misunderstood. Frequencies are what create color, and only when an object reflects or absorbs this color does it have color. When something has a color, it is reflecting that color frequency into all others' view and absorbing the remaining colors. Unless that color is black, of course. Black is unique because black will be black when all color frequencies are absorbed, and vice versa for white. All color frequencies will be reflected when creating white. Light comes in all shapes, forms, and even temperatures, those temperatures ranging from 1000 Kelvin to 10,000 Kelvin. Temperature is extremely important in light because it determines the hue of the light being created. For example, 2000 Kelvin would emit a red hue of light, while 7000 Kelvin would emit a more blue color of light. Because these lighting techniques are perceived the same way in the eye, they can be manipulated when using a camera. The major light sources include spotlights, floodlights, human-machine interfaces, tungstens, fluorescents, and light-emitting diodes. To control these sources, there are methods of using soft light, hard light, bounce light, gels, fill light, key light, three-point light, and backlight. Lighting used in specific scenarios may differ depending on the circumstance.
If you look at light in general, like all the tools that we use, they basically emulate what we see in the real world. So you have the sun that's above our heads. It's nice and harsh, you know, it's very small in the sky, so when it comes down and hits us, it throws a very hard shadow on the ground. And we have deep, you know, if you take a photo during the day and you face people in the sun, they squint, you know. So what happens is that we love, you know, as a photographer, we typically love actually a cloudy day, because now we have nice even light, right? So what happens is in the studio or when we're controlling light, we're emulating what's happening in the real world. So what's happened, we have umbrellas, that way it splashes, it throws light everywhere, it looks very nice and flat. We have things that are called soft boxes, we have things that are called grids. We have all these different modifiers, and really they're just there to control and shape so they can make the light do exactly what you want it to do. And it's not just pushing all kinds of light in, it's knowing when to delete it as well.
For example, when practicing portrait photography, the primary light source used would be professional fluorescents and spotlights. That gives the photographer the opportunity to have more control over the light and cast shadows as necessary for different effects. Between these many sources, photography is able to control this artificial and natural lighting in a way that is taking on the world of art. To manipulate the several light sources previously mentioned, there are 4 main physical tools, those being silks, Fresnels, reflectors, and color gels. Silks are more than just a cloth material. Silks are used to bounce light on an angle created by how the silk is held. Opposed to silks are Fresnel lenses. It is attached to the end of a light source, and the Fresnel is flat on one side and rigid on the other. The rigid side is from rings that angle the light of the source inward, giving a more direct angle on the subject. This will furthermore cause the light to appear as a hard light. A reflector, relatively known as a foil, is just as it sounds. This tool reflects light onto a subject directly to obtain a harsh, obvious light change. Color gels are slides of transparent material that are clipped to the front of the lighting source to alter the color hue to whatever color gel is placed in front of it. These may be used for a stylistic effect or to convey a mood. Besides the physical tools, there are again many ways to edit pictures and their lighting in post-production softwares. One software in particular being Adobe Photoshop.
It's really cool. I mean, the digital age has changed photography upside down. Makes things really cool.
There's a manifold of softwares that allow anyone to alter an image. Adobe Photoshop is the software that gives people the chance to change anything, from lighting to what the picture consists of. It offers a variety of tools that add or take away from an already crafted image. Some of those virtual tools are found in the Adjustments panel, which is located in the top right of the program. The Adjustments panel provides functions that range in opportunities to add or decrease light, color, contrast, sharpness, vulnerability, and even more. The Tools division on the left panel varies between brush tools, gradient tools, and an eraser tool, and so forth. Layering grants multiple images or previously used functions to be used at the same time. Photoshop is capable of a plethora of adjustments, but primarily is capable of changing the nature of light. Photography is capturing the world in a single image that brings out the beauty in the most depressing of situations. Manipulating the story told in each image is a set of lights that are necessary to embody the relevance of its means. Light attracts an audience of people in a way that gives them an opinion of the image just because of the way the lighting was set up. It can implement an effect on the viewer either emotionally, periodically, or even stereotypically, in a sense that gives leniency to the viewer's opinion of the picture.
One of the things that I'll share with you is that when I walk into a scene, let's say for a wedding, there could be a very emotional moment, and if I just throw light like how everybody does, and they might have like an on-camera flash, so that's very flat, so boom, it hits maybe it's the dad seeing the bride for the first time in her wedding gown, and it's very emotional, right? But when you throw the light from the camera point of view, it's very flat, doesn't really say anything, right? Maybe it's too bright in the room. Well, I can purposely take my camera, I can dial it down so that it actually underexposes the real world. So what we see isn't dramatic, but the emotion's dramatic. But now I can take a light and take it off camera and bring it over here and purposely have it skid across them. So when he's seeing her for the first time, now I have three-dimensional, like almost cinematic type lighting that captures a mood, but it's not really necessarily what's in real life. It's us making a creative decision to manipulate and reinforce the emotion that we want to show.
For example, the famous photographer, Dorothy Lang, crafted the well-known image that brought America to realization during the Great Depression. That photo was entitled, Migrant Mother. The way the natural lighting emphasized the details on the mother's face created a tired, weary look as it showed her wrinkles and frown. The angle at which she took the image put a darkness on one side of her face for dramatic effect. The image is popular to this day because all of these photographic elements created an image that would signify the hardship of the Great Depression. This image is defined as being emotionally effective. Another example of light altered to draw emotion to an image is a picture by Lee Jeffries from his Homeless album titled LA, short for Lost Angels. This one uses a sharp focus that leaves the background in complete blur and emphasizing the homeless man's every facial feature. The dead stare of the front lit eye gives an intimate feel, with there being a light facing him and to the side. A small shadow cast to the side of his portrait and his facial features are given a slight shadow to increase depth of the picture. The front light additionally whitens his facial hair more so that he appears older. The image sends a clear message of a man who has been forgotten in time, a man who holds great knowledge of the world but has little to do with it. The effect of this picture would be stereotypical, because the man pictured looks like an underclassman, but defies the lack of morale in his eyes.
The tricky thing is that without light, we don't see anything. And light, an absence of light creates 3 dimensions. So that's without, so if it's totally flat, like if you have light everywhere, then everything is very, very flat. So it's something that you can tell a story, you can shift a feel.
The way a photographer chooses to use light affects people's perspective of a photo's meaning, either emotionally or psychologically, through Photoshop or physical alteration to the scene.